Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of your last best hope for conversation, the Babylon 5 podcast for your rewatch. I am here with Karen.
Hello.
And Lou.
Hello, everyone.
And we are talking eyes. We are still on season 1. This is episode 16. I am looking forward to hearing what the team says. Lou, let's start with you. Quick thoughts about eyes.
David Warner, where are we when we really need you?
Agreed. Yeah, there was a bit of overacting in this one. Could Ben Zane be more stereotypical villain? I mean...
All they needed was a mustache to twirl.
Right, exactly. But I gotta say, it's not the worst episode I've ever seen.
Yeah,
so.
I just say that because that character is so vital to the story in this episode that because it didn't work for me, a lot of the tension wasn't there. So because there was a lot of important stuff in this episode, but the drama just really fell flat in this one because of, again, I hate to rag on an actor. I don't know how much this guy's acted, who was Gregory Martin.
Gregory Martin, yeah.
Yeah. And when I saw Jeffrey Combs there, again, I was going, my God, if they would have just flipped the roles.
Yep.
Because that guy could obviously act. This guy, so I'm sorry, he just wasn't up to the task in this episode. Or if they could have got Ricardo Montalban or something like that, like something. But yeah, there's just nothing for Sinclair to play against. So it was tough every time that guy was on the screen.
I tend to agree. He plays, even down to the scar. Just this evil. And I do think that, we assume we can't trust Morden from a few episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that, if you'd had a performance like that, like someone who was smiling and, well, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. And then being a little sneakier would have been a little more, would have added depth to the discussion.
And not just that, but it would have been a little more believable, because why would you want someone that is that overtly confrontational to actually do this under the radar? It's supposed to be under the radar going after Sinclair because it's from, I keep wanting to say Bester.
Yeah.
Bite my shiny middle ass. So just, he should have been a little more affable. I gotta agree with that. But,
It was good to see Jeffrey Combs,
mm-hmm.
who has, I think, one very, very well-known science fiction and fantasy and horror genre, a very hard-working actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so when I saw him, I had forgotten he was on this. And I went, oh, great. And I thought a very natural, a very good performance.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I gotta agree. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He isn't up to Mark Shepard's level as far as the amount of shows he's been in, but it's close. So
yeah.
All right. So let's go through this. Basically, what is it? All our hens come home to roost. All the crap that Sinclair's been doing this season about ignoring the rules, making his own decisions, stopping the strike, ticking off Bester. They get this guy who has power to come. I'm here to check to see how this station is doing, and is everything in the ship, everything. This is internal affairs, which if you watch any cop show, you know that everyone hates the rats on internal affair. So I do think that would make a good TV show, that if you made the internal affairs the hero, would be nice, a change of pace. So Karen.
Yeah. And he goes all the way back to when he disappeared and then the war ended. So we essentially have this whole, why is Sinclair in charge? There's got to be some ulterior motive. So, and then of course we learn that it's Bester and this dude who was passed over for the post. And again, it's so interesting to see how cyclical these things go. Is Sinclair using the fact that this guy took over Babylon 5 to turn it against him, to say, well, now you're an employee, so that means we get to read your mind. And I think it's funny, the guy is there to investigate all these things, and then he turns around and does it back to him. So I thought that was, I mean, it's a very Sinclair move, is thinking a couple steps ahead. I thought, except for the bad guy, Ben Zane, everybody else, their acting was pretty good. I understand why they would get internal affairs on him. I have to say, I agreed with that part of it, is that the things that he'd done as internal affairs worthy, but the fact that he does it for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that if they weren't into it for a nefarious reason, that it would be a much more surface. Well, we just got to investigate it. You've done some things that we have to check on. So I mean, how did you not know from the very beginning that this guy was a bad guy? Like, you had to know from the minute he walked onto, I mean, the scar even.
Yeah.
Just telegraphs, I'm a bad guy. And I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah.
And again, like you guys said, Jeffrey Combs, right off the bat, I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be good. Because he is just, I mean, he's done a lot of voices for like Justice League Unlimited and a bunch of other stuff. So I was really looking forward to him. And I'm glad that it turned into a decent role for him. He did a really good job with it, I thought. It looks like the telepaths on here are very diplomatic, or they're trained to be diplomatic, where they don't give much away, which is, again, it's interesting. They don't give anything away, but they're finding all the secrets. So I thought his part was really good. He tempered the fact that other dude was just so stereotypical bad guy. Ben Zane, the Gregory Martin, like I said, I mean, last week we had the bad acting from the other guy, and this week we get this guy. And it's a good thing that David Warner wasn't in this, because wow, that would have been, I mean, you really would have noticed this guy. And I mean, you even got it down to, oh, I'm going to get you, Sinclair. I mean, it was almost, like Wicked Witch.
Yeah. I'll get you
right. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So but I did understand. I like the plot line. I like that they bring back a lot of stuff. This is one of the things I was looking forward to. Let's connect some dots. And so we did connect a few dots in this one, which I liked.
Yeah. One thing I was looking, I guess there is Jesuit logic, is process of reasoning that seeks to resolve problems by extracting or extending rules from cases and reapplying those rules to new instances. And we have learned that Jeffrey Sinclair went to a Jesuit school. Right. So I think that shows I like this show that he's smart. And he's done this a couple of times where he's twisted the rules to help to get the solution that he thinks is the most fair. Lou, how about you? What's your thoughts on this guy and where Jeffrey Sinclair is at?
Yeah, I agree with you. I like how Sinclair is able to use the rules to his advantage. And this type of episode is pretty standard for serialized television, where they have an outside party come in and question the supporting characters about the actions of the main character. So this type of internal investigations episode is pretty standard fare because of the general's Snidely Whiplash type of portrayal. All the interesting stuff was the stuff that was happening in the episode when he wasn't on the screen. How were the other characters reacting to his presence? They got an opportunity to flesh out Susan's backstory. We got to see Garibaldi's prowess at digging up dirt on the general. We also learned that he had been sent there by Bester. So it's a nice callback to the previous episodes. And so all the interesting stuff was all the stuff that wasn't happening in the main storyline, which from a storytelling point of view is a big problem.
I think
so. That you've got all that. And I think that I have a really hard time talking about this episode because of that. I mean, I'm trying to stay on the main plot. The general because of his background too, like all this command decisions that Sinclair was making at the Babylon 5 was an entry point for him to really get after Sinclair. But I'm really surprised that he didn't go for the throat a lot more with all the stuff that happened during the war. I mean, he did it at the end there when he blew up, but the whole thing with Sinclair not remembering, he says, "You're a spy. You should have said you're a spy or you're a traitor," or something like that. He just like just petty jealousness about, and everybody seems to know that the Minbari are the reason that Sinclair's on that station. So that secret doesn't seem to be much of a secret anymore.
No, not at all. Hey, let's move over to Susan's. I thought that was really interesting. I think that Susan, because of her, she is saying because of the experience her mom had, that she refuses to be scanned and she will resign her commission first. We also get her letting loose in the bar and getting in a fight. So Lou, I'll keep with you. Let's talk about Susan's journey and her interaction with for once upon a time, for at least once, a likable member of the Psi Corps.
Yeah, that twist with Jeffrey Combs' character being likable was a nice touch, because it also makes the telepaths a more complex component of the Babylon 5 universe. Because if they were all evil, that would get pretty old pretty quick. So it's good to see that they're putting in some variety there. I was wondering where the station telepath was in this episode, but I guess she was off doing something. I don't know. Maybe she was down on that planet that they never talk about. The Suzanne's backstory, we've pieced this together already, so it's always good to show it, but it wasn't really anything new. Reminded me of the Empire Strikes Back, Luke's Dark Force tree moment when he goes down in the tree and fights and Darth Vader, and the mask blows up and it's himself that went there. So I was going like, okay, that seems familiar. So that was interesting, but I do like that we are getting the feeling or the picture that the reason that Susan is so buttoned down is because underneath it all, she is very passionate and she has a hard time controlling that passion unless she really buttons it down. So I like that conflict. It reminds me vaguely of the conflict that Spock had between his Vulcan and human half. So it's not quite the same, but it's in that ballpark. So I do like that storyline. I thought it was well done. And hey, it's always good to see Susan kicking ass.
Yeah. Karen?
Yeah, I agree. I loved that bar fight scene. And especially when Garibaldi comes to break it up and she says, "Are you going to arrest me?" He says, "No, I want to live."
Yeah, I did love that. Yeah.
That was great. And also, here's a question, and I'm not expecting an answer. But one of the things I was thinking of, and it's good that you brought up the Empire Strikes Back, because, and I didn't connect it, just so you know, but Luke sees his own face in the Darth Vader mask, which reveals a little bit more of his "I'm like my dad" kind of thing, even though he didn't know and all that. So when Susan's mother morphs into Susan, I couldn't help but think, does she have any of this empathic ability? Is she more like her mother than we know? This was stuff that ran through my mind, because usually when there's a scene like that, you're seeing yourself put in that same position. And if she was in that same position, it would have to mean that there's something forcing that. So I couldn't help but wonder that. I also really appreciated the fact that we saw a representation of her mother, and the comedy tragedy mask thing was weird. But again, I mean, it's a nightmare. So my nightmares are weird.
Yeah.
And that it was in like a forest setting and all that. So, I mean, if you want to analyze it, it's like, hey, my mom was lost in the forest and they came and they drugged her and she couldn't take it. And now all of a sudden I'm put in her place. And I mean, there's a lot of questions it brought up for me. And I thought, well, is part of the reason she doesn't want to be scanned because they might find out she has a little bit of disability? I mean, I can understand hating the Psi Corps for what they did to her mother. So I'm sure that is the 99.9999% of why she doesn't want to be scanned. And that I thought that was super cool that we saw that she was just going to resign immediately, because I don't want to be scanned. I'm going to resign. And the fact that she is so incredibly loyal means that this is something that it's a deal breaker for her, 100% deal breaker, because she wouldn't resign otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to see a lot about Susan in these tiny little scenes. So I really enjoyed her storyline in this. I thought her storyline was really well done. And her interactions with Harriman, I thought were cool as well, that she doesn't hate him, but she's not willing to let him scan. And she gets really upset when he scans her, or just gets that feeling from her about Talia. So why is she thinking about Talia in that moment? It brings up a lot of questions about her, but it also gives us a lot of insight into her character and her feelings. We've gotten what her feelings are towards the Psychor, but it's even more intense than what we've seen before. So very cool.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Karen. I didn't bring it up because I'm pretty sure that's where they're going to go with the character, but I liked her explanation of she has that connection that she had with her mother and she doesn't want that tainted. I really like that, but her reaction is still way over top just for that. So I think that's likely the direction they're going to go with that character, but we'll have to see.
In what direction?
That she's got telepath or empathic abilities as well, or Psycorps.
So I will say this, right? That it is sometimes they want to drug test you. Okay, fine.
I don't got anything to hide, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything to hide. Yeah, like, where's my cup?
Mhm.
I'll take care of business. Though I do know there are people that have a very strong sense of this is wrong. You can't, if you the people you have nothing to hide, you don't mind being asked, and the other people are like, no, it's the principle.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea, you talked about this, because Jeffrey Combs is so good and Claudia Christian, both of them really helped each other. They had something to play off against each other.
Right.
And so I do wonder, if you are this reluctant to do that, is there something else going on there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's an unrealistic to think of, like, well, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I do, especially after he said, I promise I'm going to be very gentle. I'm going to take care of you, right? I will not do this. And she is just insistent in giving up her career. I do love, once again, how Sinclair manipulates things so that he protects her and protects the rest of the staff to do that. But I think that's something we're going to have to keep looking on and see. And it is a good question. Why is she thinking of Talia?
Mm-hmm.
What is that about? They've had, at this point, they haven't had a lot of scenes together, but they've had a couple. We haven't seen her in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is like, that doesn't make any sense why she's thinking of her. So we'll have to see what goes with there. So we've already talked about that Sinclair ended up being able to manipulate. We find out that our evil villain is exactly that, going after, this is a personal vendetta because he was mad he didn't get the station. And in his mind, I do think he feels like he is a true patriot and someone who'd earned this command. And in this case, this is a Minbari stooge, and it's wrong that he got passed over for him. Any other thoughts on those two storylines before we go to our B story, which was just for humor?
No, it really makes me want to look up stuff, though, because I really want to know if she has some psychic ability. I will refrain, however.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. All right. B story. Couple of things that I liked about this, a couple of things I didn't like about it. Garibaldi has a motorcycle, a Kawasaki Ninja, I guess. And for fun, he's going to put it together. And he's like, I've only got this Japanese manual. And I'm like, okay, but you have the internet. Like, why can't you actually get an English? Are you telling me that no one uploaded, that the website never uploaded the actual manual? Because you see Lennier actually doing the research on that. It's a fun little story. It does give Bill Mumy a chance to act against Jerry Dole. So Karen, thoughts on our motorcycle diaries?
Okay, super silly. And Lennier, I think Garibaldi really should have impressed upon Lennier that the joy would have been putting together the motorcycle and not just having it. But you do see that Lennier just, he gets it, but he doesn't get it.
Right.
And I like that they discuss how, you know, a combustion engine is terrible for the environment. Yay. I like that. I mean, that's 30 years ago and 20 some years ago that they're thinking about all the environment stuff on the writers.
Yes.
We're thinking about that. It was very cool. But I do have to think that Lennier just didn't understand Garibaldi. And to see them acting opposite each other, it does show a bit about Garibaldi and Lennier, that they're just so completely like poles apart, different. And that Lennier has to like do some weird chant in order to put together the bike. Really? Yeah. Well, is he just getting centered? I thought it was cute, the storyline. And I hear that Jerry Doyle was like a huge motorcycle person. So that was a selling point for him to do this. And as someone whose husband is like way into muscle cars, it was cool on that front. I know that the joy is putting things together. And as soon as it's done, you sell it because you want to go on to another project. So yeah, I was a little frustrated when he just shows up with the motorcycle all put together and shiny and all that. And yeah, I mean, they mentioned and used the internet in this episode, but he only has the manual, the Japanese manual. So yeah, that was weird. And then having them write it down the hallways, is that not dangerous to write it around the station?
Yes, I think it's very dangerous. Yes.
Yeah, so there was that. I don't usually like B stories that don't mirror or tie into the A story, but I think in this case it was that there was a tiny little thread in that Garibaldi felt removed from where he could help. Yes. He was taken away from doing the bike, and he was also taken away from Sinclair. So, I mean, that's the only connection I can see between the two storylines. And it's so subtle. You know, I had to dig to try and get that. So, I mean, I guess.
That's more than I saw. So good.
Okay.
Good on you, Karen. Yeah.
Yeah, he felt like he couldn't.
Yeah. How about you, Luke?
He couldn't get involved.
Yeah, I logistically on a couple of fronts, it doesn't really make much sense. Like this bike got all the way out to Babylon 5 from Earth. Like I just don't buy that.
How expensive is that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you just go with it. And it was just fun to see two characters that normally don't interact with each other interacting. And at the same time, we got to learn a little bit more again about the Minbari. And it seems that everything that they approach in life, they have to ground it in some sort of religious focus, whether this Lennier doing ohms to get to get centered, to figure out how to put the spike together. It's funny how they can do a great creature shot last episode, and yet this bike shot of the bike going down the corridor just did not look good.
Cheesy.
I
just didn't get it.
It was CGI. I saw that because I don't understand. They said that Jerry Joel had a bad experience yet, but he's a fan, so that didn't make any sense to me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just took it as I don't know if these two characters are going to act more in the future, but it's interesting to see how a common interest can bring two people from very, very different backgrounds together. It's like the thing that we've discovered on the internet. We all live in different parts of the world, and that yet we can all be brought together by the love for something common. So that's the spirit I took it in. And I just felt like every time those two guys were together, I thought, wow, Jerry Dole is really tall.
Yes.
Which means that the guy who plays Sinclair is also very tall, because they see eye to eye a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was interesting is that this whole Lennier not getting the idea, it's the process. I remember I had a boss who bought a new Corvette and he sold it fairly quickly because what he really wanted was an old Corvette to tinker with.
Right.
Like he didn't really want to own a Corvette. He wanted this that he could play with and rebuild and do that. And you're right. There's a lot of people that they build those old classic muscle cars, then they immediately sell it because they want another one to build. It is
Right.
yeah. So
And I don't know if also there was some fantasy satisfaction of this device because of Lennier was fascinated by the fact that it was a symbol of masculinity and sexual prowess. So I don't know if that was a factor in it as well.
it does have that great line where Lennier, when Garibaldi is so tired and he says, Mr. Garibaldi, I was about to embark on the mysteries of the fuel injection system. Would you care to join me? Do me a favor, embark on a journey to your quarters so I can get some sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and he goes, if I kill him, I will start a war. Right? That was really nice.
Yeah. And I liked it at the end when Garibaldi said, get out of here. And he says, yes, of course. And he says, no.
Yeah. Right. He's using it as a colloquialism.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
That was funny too.
Yeah. That's
it just, again, it shows the complete difference between these two characters. And I like that, Lou, that you bring up because of the internet, that the world is so much smaller that we can really connect with people through one shared thing. And then, of course, we learn more and we become friends and all that. But to them, it was like, even after he's frustrated with Lennier, they still go on that joyride.
Yep.
Yes.
So the fact that they did this thing together bonded them, even though I don't think that they're going to be buddies. But it was cool that they were like riding the bike together.
Yeah. I did love the fact Jane Espenson, the writer that from Buffy and all these other things, she did a blog for a while that was about helping people write. And one of the advice she gave is, because at times everything's cyclical, but for a while, if you wanted to submit a spec script, you had to do an existing show. They didn't want original scripts. They wanted to show that you could write in that voice. And she always recommended find two characters that never interact or very rarely interact and figure out a way to make them interact. It will give you fresh. And so having these two people interact is really made it a lot of fun.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So final thoughts, or let's go to ratings.
I do want to touch briefly on, because it's in the background of almost the last couple of episodes, all the stuff that's going on Earth and elsewhere with all these different factions. I assume that this is going to come to head in some way or form and make its presence felt pretty strongly on Babylon 5. Sinclair calling up his commander in chief, I guess. I don't remember the character's name off the top of my head. So there's a lot of this background stuff that's being filled in, but we're being told a lot of it. And at some point, I'm hoping that we're actually going to see some of this stuff. So I just didn't want that to be missed in this episode.
Karen, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the fact that it's a guy who just is not willing to intervene because he does it like an election's coming up or whatever. I mean, that shows that there is a lot of stuff going on that will hinder things that happen on Babylon 5. And also we got a hint that the Mars colony is in unrest or something. It was just like a one-off line or something, but it shows that while on Babylon 5 it seems relatively peaceful. I mean, it's not super peaceful, but it seems like a more ideal world on Babylon 5 than out on Earth or on Mars or whatever. So
I'm going to go there, but I'm wondering if Babylon 5 is the Mar-Lago of the Babylon 5 universe.
Very nice.
All these parties are fighting over it.
Yes, it is.
So you think there's a bunch of documents there?
There's a bunch of something there.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that is a very good thing to point, that they're away from It's almost like you're stationed at a ambassador, like at an embassy somewhere.
Right.
And so, and you're hearing all this noise, and there's a lot going on. And I do think that is in fact, I know, no spoilers, but that is important in the overall storyline. You will see that very much. So good to pick that up.
Cool.
Nice. Good. All right. Karen, you want to rate it?
Sure. Because there was a lot of stuff brought up and not because of the acting, I'm going to give it 7.5 comedy and tragedy masks.
Oh, nice. Luke?
Yeah, because the main storyline didn't work for me, I can't give this one too high of a rating. So I think I'll go with a 7 sneaky besters on this one.
All right. Well, then I will give it, I think I'm going to be with Karen, 7.5 ninja bikes.
There you go.
Yeah. So really well done. We have some feedback. Karen,
We do.
You have it? And then
I do.
All right. Go ahead.
So it's from our good friend Alexander. And he writes, once again, it's time to catch up with some episode discussions again, and Eyes is the next one on the list. Even though I rarely think about this episode when discussing the show as a whole, Eyes features some of my favorite story elements of the first season. The A-plot of this episode strikes me as a pivotal point in the first time watching experience, and he gives it air quotes. The show turns around and says, hey, all those questions and thoughts you've been having about the stories of this show, yeah, they're valid, and people in the universe are asking them as well. In my own perception of the show in recent rewatches, I've noticed that this has helped steer my attention when thinking about it. When I see something that feels odd or contradicts my intuition, around this time in the show, I start questioning my own theories before considering what budget or writing staff limitations might have caused the inconsistency. This can make you quite paranoid once you start building ever more elaborate conspiracies and theories about how everything in this show fits together. But given the growing concerns about the Psych War and the corrupt Earth officials, that feels only appropriate. As for the B plot, at first glance, it's a good laugh, but in a weird way, this adventure of Lennier also has a tragic undertone for me. Up to this point, every time we saw Lennier, he was a servant to Delenn or his government. He's incredibly devoted to this duty, so much so that he spends most of his life at the temple and wouldn't even raise his eyes to look at Delenn or the world around him when he first came to the station. Only now, when he expressly says that Delenn is gone and he's got some time on his own, we see how much passion and enthusiasm for his own explorations Lennier has. He's such a bright mind, so happy to learn about other cultures, but it seems like he very rarely got the chance to do so for most of his life. So I think those are good comments, and Alexander.
Absolutely. And thank you. I thought it was a great email. We're giving highlights of it. It's very good. Do you have Nathan's? Not, I have Holly's.
I don't have Nathan.
All right. Well, here, do you have Holly's?
I don't.
Okay. Well, then I will read both. Holly Mack. Hey, all. Love that Garibaldi is getting help from Lennier on his motorbike. I trust Gray is about as far as I can throw him. Glad that Garibaldi has Sinclair's back when it comes to the eye. I'm with Garibaldi that checking them out isn't a bad thing. Love how Sinclair turns the table with the scanning of the Colonel. And man, Lennier moves fast. That bike is a beauty, even if Garibaldi wanted to take his time in putting it together. Plus, the special modifications Lennier did to make it run was nice. Sinclair may have to make a rule about racing that bike down corridors or scrounge up some money in the budget to put in a racetrack. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
They could do like a little mini racetrack like that, like the boxing ring.
Yeah.
Put it in a tiny little place.
Yeah. So, and then Nathan sent, hey guys, love this episode. The rare season 1 humor storyline is well done, tense, and with a great resolution. Gregory Paul Martin, the actor who plays Ben Zarn, is an amazing Rick with a P and has wonderful tense interactions with everyone. Love to hate him just like Bester. Ivanova is here, the best of the season so far. For me, writing and Claudia's delivery of her lines don't quite gel, even though I loved Ivanova from the first episode. There was some kind of stiffness there and sometimes too much forcedness. I'm acting. Kind of tough to watch your favorite miss the goal. And here in Eyes, the moments of rage due to fear and attempt to cover vulnerability are the best, just like our interactions with Talia in the first episode. All I can say about Lennier is that he's a treasure. Also glad that you're past most of the dull episodes. The show has mostly found itself and is out of the obligatory season 1 slump of all space operas in the 90s went through. With regards, me. Thank you, Nathan. And I agree. We are starting to ramp up toward the end of season 1, and I'm looking forward to what the guys are going to think. Lou, do we have any feedback from our YouTube channel?
Yes, we do, quite a bit, in fact. So I'm going to have to paraphrase some of these, but the regular crew here is back. Owner, Marchetti, Simon Giles, Nathan, Retro Robot Radio, I think is a new one. Mike Finney's back, and Pauline Gray, who she just says, I can't have Christmas until I watch Christmas Carol with David Warner, R.I.P.
Nice.
So most of the comments have to do with the history of the previous Babylon stations. Apparently, according to owner, Babylon 5 was built with pieces of salvage from the previous stations. So that was interesting to know. It's also Babylon 5 was built on the cheap and is smaller than its predecessors. And that's why you'll see things randomly breaking down on the station. Also, it explains why Babylon 5 is called the last best hope for peace, because if this one fails, then it's over. Won't be any funding to build another one. So that's good to know. Marchetti comments on their reaction to the quest for the Grail, which makes a great stand-in for the audience, because we've seen that this myth drawn upon so often that we often roll our eyes when it comes up. But he did like that Delenn immediately offers a great new perspective. The Grail isn't what matters, it's the journey there. So that's a nice touch. I like that quite as well. Simon mentioned Buds Wellington was played by Irish actor Jim Norton, known to many as the terrifying Bishop Brennan from Father Ted. I'm familiar with the show, but I haven't watched it in any great amount. And he also says that he comes back a couple times in alien roles, and he absolutely knocks it out of the park every time. So that's good to know. And what else have we got here? Nathan has quite a timeline rundown of the history of Babylon 5. And he does mention one thing about humans are running high on fumes of being the most important military contributor to the defeat of an almost unstoppable Delgar race. I'm totally drawing a blank on that. I don't know if that's going to be something that will be refreshed in future episodes. But so right off the bat, I'm going, I guess I'm not paying enough attention because I don't remember that at all.
So there is two different ways to watch Babylon 5. When TNT purchased them, they gave them money and they did a TV movie called In the Beginning, which basically tells everything that is kind of implied in season 1, and it is set before the pilot. And JMS has been very clear. You can do either one. Like if you watch the movie first, then a lot of the mysteries that you see in season 1, you go, I see what they're doing there. And you watch it knowing other things, or you can watch In the Beginning after a certain point and then go where, this is a different thing. So that's why they have not implied that. They will get to that the Earth was feeling themselves.
Yeah.
They're like, oh man, we're all good. And then they ran into the Minbari and went, maybe we aren't.
I was worried that I'd totally missed something there.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so most of the comments about, the history of the stations and that. And I want to thank everyone once again for listening to the episode and commenting on it. It's always appreciated.
And if someone wants to find us, where can they find that and hear more of your fine work?
The YouTube version of the podcast is on YouTube at Lou's Reviews under the Babylon 5 playlist. And of course, Jesse, you do a video or audio only version.
Yes, we do. We do that. We can find that on where all podcasts are found. So, Karen, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
I'm at Oliveria on the Twitter machine and almost every other social media platform. And there's a link in my bio to my blog, which, again, I haven't updated yet, but I'll get to it.
Where are you up on your reading challenge?
Oh, boy. You're going to put me on the spot, huh? Let me check. 437? Oh, I'm past.
Nice.
I'm done.
You're done. You've hit yours. Good for you.
I think.
So you don't have to
that's
read
2016. Let me look at the new one.
Okay.
Yeah,
say, you don't have to read the rest of the year.
Well, it's not like I wouldn't. Okay, 253 of 350 books.
Wow.
Nice.
And that
Good
is
deal.
counting up until today. I put in my books last night. So
Very nice. Cool. All right. And Lou, how about yourself?
For what, contact info? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, just as I mentioned, YouTube, Lou's Reviews, on Twitter at Lou W. Sitzmo or at Stephen King Podcast.
All right. Very nice. You can send us emails at jklb5podcast@gmail.com. You can find me at Jesse Jackson DFW. We just did on my buddy's How Many podcast. We did an Olivia Newton-John episode. We put out the bat signal after her passing, and we did a really quick discussion about her life and legacy, and that was a lot of fun. Even though it was a sad, we definitely did a celebration of her great music. And it's John Hyatt month on Set Lusting Bruce, which is a singer-songwriter from Indiana that I wish more people would know about. All right, so next week we are talking.
which one are we watching next week?
Yeah, hold on. I will tell you just now.
Legacies.
Legacies.
Okay.
Legacies is next. So looking forward to that. That leaves us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've only got 6 or 7 episodes left of the first season. So that'll be great. So for now, you guys take care, be safe, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. And scene.